Hello, and welcome to Encouraging Leadership, conversations that mobilize today's women leaders, with your host, Ann Miner. Meet leaders who share their observations, knowledge, insight, and perspectives to mobilize you to apply your own leadership in business and in life. Here's your host, Ann Miner.
Welcome to Encouraging Leadership, conversations to mobilize today's women leaders. I have with me today a very special guest, Jennifer Jimbere, who is the president of Jimbere Coaching and Consulting, co-founder and resident expert of the Radical Joy-Seeking Women's Club, and a writer for Bella Mia magazine. Jennifer is a certified professional coach, change management, and positive psychology practitioner. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you very much, Anne. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with your audience.
Well, I'm glad that you're able to be with us. And as you know, these are conversations to mobilize today's women leaders. And I think that we should just jump right in and start talking about your business and how you help with inspiring individuals, teams, and organizations to unleash strengths and maximize performance. So why don't you just start right in and let us know how you help people unleash their strengths.
Thank you. What I do is share proven, action-oriented, research-based applications, as you said, in the areas of coaching, change management, and positive psychology. So how I help people unleash their strengths is I meet them where they are and help them to uncover those strengths that they have. I use two tools in support of that. One is Extended Disc, and the other is the VIA Signature Strength Survey, which helps them uncover how they're showing up and ensure that they're aware of their strengths and how they can serve them, as well as how not to overuse those strengths, meaning our strengths can be overused and become opportunities for us.
So maybe it would be helpful if you filled us in a little bit on what are those tools. So you mentioned Extended Disc, which I am familiar with, but our listeners may not be, and I'm not familiar with the other one. So why don't you start with Extended Disc?
Thank you. Extended Disc is a theory of human behavior that helps individuals to become more successful by providing a framework, if you will, to make conscious decisions about how to adjust our behavior with others. So it's not about changing who we are. It's about becoming more aware of who we are and how we might want to flex to meet others where they are. The model is based on the foundations of Gustav Jung's work and as well as Marston's work. It was used, Dr. Jung's model, to develop the DISC model that can be used to help people better understand other people and themselves. So the power of the model in comparison to others, because, you know, we're probably both familiar with Myers-Briggs and others, is it's pretty simple. It's easy to learn and understand, and it identifies only 4 behavior styles inside of that model. So there's D, which is dominance, I, which is influence, S, which is submissive, and C, which is compliance.
Okay. Can you give me an example of how you might utilize the Extended Disc results to help people with their leadership challenges?
Absolutely. So I have a new contract. Actually, it was last week where I shared the DISC results with someone. So they accepted to take the assessment, and then, you know, we had the results. And so it was a new level of leadership for this person, more of a department level versus a team leader. And so what we uncovered was their, discomfort with the D style, the dominant style. So when a situation might show up for them where there is confrontation or a difference of opinion, their go-to is more avoidance versus dominance. So rather than, you know, having the conversation and uncovering what both sides are, they tend to avoid the discussion because they're worried about conflict. And so what we talk through is, suppose you did have the courage for that discussion, what does that look like? and help them prepare for it.
I think that would be very important for people who are engaging in leadership of individuals and teams, that there is conflict, there's controversy, and there's discussion and disagreement. So being able to confront that in a positive way is essential for most leaders, I would think.
Yeah, and I think it's also about changing the lens on it, right? It's about the perception of conflict and people feeling as though they need to prepare for a difficult conversation. So if we change the lens on that more to, I am looking to meet you where you are, or, that third alternative feeling of I seek you out, then the anxiety around it reduces.
Okay. Very interesting. So tell us about the other tool that you use. That's one I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, so it's on the website, viacharacter.org, and one of the founding fathers of positive psychology, his name is Martin Seligman, created this, and it's finding your pathway to positive. It's the only free scientific survey on character strengths. So when people take that free assessment, it takes all of your answers into consideration and gives you a result in the assessment and shares with you your top character strengths. And so what we use that for is to uncover, again, how are those showing up for you? In what way are they supporting you? And in what way, as leader, are they an opportunity for you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if, for example, honesty is a top character strength for someone, they want others to think of them as an honest person. And so we encourage them to have discussions and use that word inside of their discussions so that when people would describe them, they use that adjective to describe them. So also we talk about what happens if you have doubt in the person that you're in conversation with, that they are being honest with you. Because when it's a top character strength, you tend to be really, it's almost like you're black and white, right? Like everything has to be 100% honest, or I don't trust that person, and then biases come into effect in their leadership role. So we talk about how they might flex and how others may not have that as a top character strength.
Well, I think that would be one of the areas where I myself might find a bit of difficulty. In fact, I can remember saying within my own organization, we are a trust and faith, not a religious faith, but faith in one another based organization. Mm-hmm. And the one unforgivable behavior is that of lying. So if we can't trust you to tell us the truth, you can't be a part of our tribe. Mm-hmm. So that would suggest that we're very black and white here.
As well as when someone doesn't feel that sense of comfort to share that really openly, what does that say? What do we need to do to implement more open door policy? And we talk through that as well.
Yes, of course. So there's a number of aspects that go with that, including removing the fear of punishment for for mistakes that are made or situations where people are uncomfortable about whether their actions were correct or not.
Yeah, and creating the environment for that honesty to flourish.
Yes, exactly. Interesting. All right, so those are a couple of tools that you use to help people unleash their strengths. And I noticed that you had an interesting way of using the word opportunity. So when you say opportunity, Jennifer, what are you meaning?
So I mean that each of us have great strengths and opportunities to develop. So some people might call those weaknesses, but I operate from a strength-based perspective. And so I don't tend in my work to focus a lot of time on people's weaknesses, because I think that us operating more from our zone of genius, more from, areas that come easily to us, end up seeing better results. But what you'll notice sometimes in some organizations is that, somebody's business plan or their development plan or their conversations in one-on-one are mainly development-based. And so there's a lot of time spent on building out and up those weaknesses. And so I operate from a strengths-based perspective instead.
Mm-hmm. And that just makes so much sense. So give us some examples of the types of challenges faced by most of the executive women that you support.
Oh, well, there's several. I would say a few are a feeling of belonging when you get to a certain level, keeping it all together and, showing that you are, measuring effort versus impact, so being very conscious about the choices that they're making, and the line between aggressive and assertive. And the one that I come across most often is how they are seen in regards to that line between aggressive versus assertive behavior. And I think we have a long way to go on this.
Well, maybe you can, explain that a bit further. I'm certainly familiar with the dilemma of women being seen as aggressive versus assertive, but it may be that others face that challenge in a little bit different way than maybe I do. So you could perhaps give our listeners some idea of what that looks like from your practice perspective.
Yeah, and so when we uncover, maybe that comes to us in feedback, right? So somebody might share with me, I received this feedback and I'm really upset by it. And so we'll unpack that and understand, what was that person's perception. And we use a model where we look at it first person, we look at it second person, and then we looked at it as though you're a reporter reporting on the situation. So we try to kind of take away, your ownership in it and report on it with only facts. And look at, is this merely a perception problem of someone else's? Because we are showing up authentically and assertively, and they're just not used to that in a female form, right? Or is it that, when we actually unpack that feedback, that there's something in it that we need to explore and that we might need to work on? Because I picture feedback like a little red box on your desk with a black bow on it. And so someone can give you that feedback and you can just leave that box right there on your desk. Or you can unwrap that black ribbon and open up the box and find out what is inside and how can I develop from this. Yes.
I think that you've really, put the nail on the head of something that often comes forward, and that is the personalization of feedback. And so the idea of having it in a box takes that first step of removing it from being personal, huh?
Yeah, and I think, again, it's that perception and that lens where if you see that box as a gift, then you might open it up and appreciate it. If you see it as, I hate when I get feedback like this, then most likely that box is going to stay on your desk and you're not going to develop from it.
It could be very tempting to do that, couldn't it? And yet, if we can depersonalize it in the sense that it's feedback, it's a piece of information for you that may or may not have value, then that's really a critical strength for leaders, do you not think?
Absolutely. Yeah. And for them to disassociate with, who is this feedback coming from? Because, depending on the past experiences with that person, that, again, there might be biases that are showing up. And so how do we disassociate, the person end of the situation with the facts and what might be there for you to learn from.
Indeed. Yes, I observed a situation quite recently where an individual was receiving feedback very poorly, in that, the giver of the feedback was endeavoring to be very logical and calm, take any emotion out of the expression of the feedback. The recipient was just unable, absolutely unable to see it as something valuable and unable to make the necessary adjustment to their own behavior.
Yeah.
So being able to develop that skill is certainly something I would think your clients and all leaders would benefit from.
Yeah, and when you get into that discussion, it also leads into, how are you providing feedback? Do you have a feedback model? How is it supporting you? Would having one so that you have prepared, thorough discussions that are impactful and seek different behavior from others support your leadership efforts?
Well, that's interesting. Do you provide a feedback model, or are there multiple models that you use?
A specific model that I use, and I'm thinking of one leader in particular who's owned a business for about 20 years and is a leader, but doesn't love stepping into the leader role. So he knows his business really, really well, but it's expanding quickly. And so he has more members on the team. And I always kind of come back to, so did you use the feedback model? Well, parts of it. So okay, well, what would be the impact if we would have checked in for permission before going ahead with that feedback? What would have been the impact if we would have asked for a different behavior from that person before the conversation ended? Yeah.
Well, that again is so powerful when you ask permission before providing feedback. Because once you have the permission of the other party, then you have a contract.
Yeah. And you know that now is a good time. If, for example, if you're a leader and you walk into someone's office and they just got off the phone with their mother who has cancer, then you don't know that. And you don't know that now is not a good time. They are not open and receptive to hearing what it is you're saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's really important. Now, what do you have people do when in the feedback model between getting permission and requesting a change of behavior?
So what we do is state the situation, right? Then discuss the impact that it had on all the parties, whether it's the client themselves, someone else in the team, or that individual, and then seek out their understanding. And that way we have all of the facts. And then ask for a different behavior. And then once we start seeing a shift, provide positive reinforcement. So, for example, if, let's say it's a situation with customer service, and we notice that there's some wins. We are witnessing those wins, bringing them back into the discussion the next time we have a one-on-one, or the next time we go by that person's desk, whatever that looks like in their environment, sharing that win to positively reinforce the different behavior is really important.
Yes, something that's forgotten, I've noted. We forget to close the loop on reinforcing and recognizing, acknowledging that we have observed a change. And
they have effort. They are putting effort into what you've asked.
So you mentioned one of the other challenges was belonging. So what does that look like when you're talking with executive women?
That the boardroom has 12 men and them, or 12 men, them, and one other woman. And so feeling as though when they speak, they are heard, they are valued, they belong, and that their contributions are just as important. And so sometimes that's a perception, our own lens, because of what we see at the table, and sometimes it's real.
So if it's their perception, the executive woman's perception, I can imagine how you might work with them to adjust that. What do you do in a situation where it's actually real?
Well, we talk again about values and character strengths, and are they operating in alignment with those values in their current environment? How can they bring that forward to their leader in discussion and seek out facts? Right? So that's, again, one of those attributes, like acting courageously. If that's something that she was to feel on a regular basis, then she won't be operating from her zone of genius and bringing those strengths forward, because self-doubt will come in, ruminating will come in. So how can she bring that forward to discuss it and act courageously?
You mentioned another interesting word there, ruminating. Where does that come in?
So women do this way more than men do. And it is how self-doubt shows up in some people. Ruminating means we go to a meeting and we present or we contribute to that discussion at the table. And then we get a response and someone else doesn't respond, and then we leave that meeting. And on our way back to our desk, we are just replaying it and then questioning it. And then, well, what if? And then what does that mean? And and they just kind of stay a little bit stuck in that and keep repeating it over and over again. And that is not efficient. It's not a good use of time. And so there are strategies that can help you, stop ruminating and start acting, start asking, start, acting courageously. If you really feel like your values are out of alignment with the people at that table, then we need to have discussion.
So it's clearer now. Ruminating is what we do when we're, well, I could have said that, or I should have said that, or what did he mean by that, or what did she mean by that, and I should have asked.
Exactly.
Yes. Interesting. Recently I myself experienced a situation where I had presented, and the reaction I received was very vague. It was something like this: well, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Very debilitating response, huh? So I'd be interested in knowing how you would think a woman executive could handle that situation.
Well, I think it comes back to operating from their strengths. If, for example, that was a one-off response from someone, and you have a room full of people who did not have that response, then let's focus on the positives. Let's go, oh, okay, well, I'll accept that. And unless I want to unpack it by asking questions, I will move forward with the knowledge that for most people, this was beneficial. So sometimes it's thought-stopping, sometimes it's, clarifying or parroting back to the person. So if you were to receive that feedback and then parrot it back to the person who gave it to you and then say, could you tell me more? Then you might uncover what they meant by that. Is it that they're having an off day and it really didn't resonate? Or is it that your content, wasn't as impactful as they expected? And then you might get a new gift in the feedback of how could you make it that way? Most often, if you have, because I also facilitate workshops, and so if you have a room of 35, 40 people, If 32 of the people are saying, wow, that really helped me, thank you so much, here's what I took from it, here's how I'm going to use it, and then you have 2 participants who say, oh, not a good use of my time, my focus is on the 33 people that I had impact on. Some people's focus chooses to be on the 2 people who didn't have the best feedback.
Mm-hmm.
That's a choice that we make.
And it's not a particularly healthy choice, is it? I remember one time I was listening to Brendan Burchard. I'm sure you're familiar with him. Definitely. And he had people, enumerate how many individuals they would have met in their life, or how many people do you know, and it would be in the hundreds for most people. And then he had us enumerate the number of people we'd encountered who didn't like us. And of course, there's people who don't. No, none of us are universally liked. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So everybody had 1, or maybe 2, maybe 5. But out of the hundreds of people they'd encountered, it was a very minute portion. Mm-hmm. And so he pointed out that all those people that like you, that receive what you have to offer in a positive and valued way, could just swarm those other people and on your behalf. And perhaps that would be a healthier way to look upon the situation. It would be different if you had only 2 people appreciating what you had to say and 33 or 32 people not. But in most instances, we do let those negative, those critiques, criticizers, trip us up.
Mm. Yeah.
We need to stop that.
Absolutely. It's just training your brain to find the solution. One of the things that I talk about as well is a 90-second scorecard. I'm not sure if you and I have talked about this before, but Dr. Jason Self was a presenter at one of the elite conferences that I created and hosted. And he talked about how most people, again, it goes back to ruminating, how most people, when a situation or challenge comes up, end up just kind of, oh, what happened? Who did it impact? How am I going to deal with it? And they just keep going on and on and on. Where he talked about creating this 90-second scorecard. So on the left-hand side, if you have like a piece of paper, you would write the problem or challenge out, and then you'd write a line between that piece of paper, and on the right-hand side, you'd write out the solution. And so you time yourself, literally, until you start training your brain for 90 seconds to write out the problem. Who did it impact? What happened? What is this going to do to me? And 90 seconds later, you move your pen from the left to the right side of the paper and start offering up solutions. And if you do this on a regular basis and consistent basis, you can start mentally training your brain to find the solutions in problems.
Wow, what a great tool. Mm-hmm. Listeners, I hope you took note of that. That is the 90-second, what did you call it?
Scorecard.
90-second scorecard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jennifer, we are coming to the end of our time, and we had one more question that I wanted to ask you, and that is, how do you integrate positive psychology into your coaching and consulting work?
Thank you for asking. My coaching is a little bit different because I'm operating from those 3 different disciplines all the time. So I take the practices I've learned and support people in increasing their positive emotions. So kind of, always seeing the possibilities. So I'm inviting them to take time to savor their wins. As I work with top performers, they don't always do this, right? They just keep going on to the next thing. I help them to foster positive workplaces by, implementing gratitude, savoring practices, letting things go, not ruminating, as we discussed, and win boxes. So, for example, some large organizations have systems in place like Bravo or ways to recognize our employees and thank them for their efforts. But on smaller scale, it's easy to catch people when they're winning, write down just a quick little thing that you saw that was really positive, that aligns with your company's values and role requirements and put that into a box, whether it's like a decorated Kleenex box or something fancier. And once a month, just draw an employee's name and, give a small token of appreciation for their efforts. So there's a lot of ways that we can introduce some of the practices from positive psychology into either coaching or the change management consulting that I do. So 2 weeks ago, I was at the Canadian Positive Psychology Association annual event. It was a 2016 event. And I attended one session. It was great. It was called Coaching A to Z. And the importance of it was the words that we choose and how they show up and how they alter our interaction with others. So her word choice of suppose and how powerful that is, I took away. And I can't wait to start using that with some of my coaching and consulting clients. Because what happens sometimes, as you know, when we're in discussion with others, is they can feel stuck, right? Mm-hmm. And the power of saying, suppose you weren't, or suppose you can, it turns that kind of curiosity place in our brain on and helps shift them to move forward. And I think that positive psychology practices really do help leaders become better coaches. Come from a place of asking versus telling, and come from that place of curiosity and gratitude.
Well, Jennifer, I am imagining that our listeners would be interested in knowing how they could get in touch with you. So how would you like them to connect if they are interested?
Well, they can certainly visit the website, www.jimbere, Jimbere, coachingandconsulting.com. They can follow on Twitter @Jennifer Jimbere, connect on LinkedIn, and also join my community on Facebook. We're almost at 900 people, which is awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very active group where I share every week a word of the week, so our focused word, and then I share a book for the week, and then I take that book and pull out lessons from it in leadership, positive psychology, or change management. And, I support people in thinking things through, and I ask questions to support them. So you can connect on the website. There's a whole contact page where you can email me or phone 519-539-5522. And I call myself your partner in possibility because I think for each of us that looks different.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much for joining us today, Jennifer. This has truly been a conversation to mobilize today's women leaders. Listeners, I do hope that you will join us next week at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday. Thank you again, and in the meantime, be courageous.
Thank you for listening to Encouraging Leadership. To learn more about our host, Ann Miner, and the Acacia Institute, please visit acaciainstitute.com. Join us next week at the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern, for more Encouraging Leadership. In the meantime, be courageous.